Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. The way we're going to proceed at this point is David's going to give his talk. It's an abbreviated talk. And then we're going to enter into our ordination ceremony. But David, he first got involved with the fellowship back in the, I guess it was the mid-70s. He began working directly with Paul Solomon. And Paul Solomon was so impressed with David that he asked David to go around the country to different cities and to talk about ILC. And literally what Chris was just singing about, go forth into the world and just preach the gospel of the Lord. And David did this. And then David decided to take an extended sabbatical from the fellowship. He was gone for a number of decades, and he reappeared. As happens to many of our folks. He reappeared about 4 or 5 years ago, and now he's been flying up here from his home and his family in Florida and giving talks. And we've really come to know and to really love David and respect him greatly. Well, a few months ago, we kept telling David, why don't you, David for some reason never became ordained. And we kept saying, David, why don't you consider, being ordained as a minister? And it worked on him. And finally, a few months ago, he submitted a letter requesting ordination. Our pastoral council carefully reviewed his credentials, and he far exceeds any credentials that would be required. His whole life has been ILC and inner light consciousness and basically helping others, which is what it's all about. And so he's going to be talking more about why he wants to be a minister. We have 3 questions he'll be asking, so I won't go into details on that. But the main thing about David is this is a man with a great deal of love. And that goes beyond anything else. A man with a great deal of heart, and he spent his life in service to others. And so without further ado, I invite David on up.
Well, at this point, I hope my voice holds up. I am very grateful to be here as undoubtedly the slowest ILC student ILC ever had. Paul sent me out on the road as a guide in 1978. He did a reading that saved my infant son's life in 1974. And I got around in 77 to coming down and became a guide. And when I'd been on the road for about a year in a different city every week, that entire time, he called me and said, I think we ought to commission you. And so I was commissioned as a guide and went back on the road for another year. And then the little will of this man asserted itself, and I went away. And I started over, and I took ILC into a new life in special education. And trained and worked with young handicapped children and their families for about 30 years. So like a lot of you, I did my ILC a little bit undercover, but I did do a lot of it and loved it. And gradually came back. And I have always wanted to be ordained. And perhaps like some of you, it took me a while to come to the point where I would say, maybe I'm good enough to walk with God. I always knew there was a God. I wasn't sure about that other part. And I'm going to give you only a very short message today. There's so much to do. Here we are in the fellowship, not the only fellowship. There are other fellowships around the world. The fellowship was one half of Paul Solomon's work. He meant it to be a place where there could be joy in worship. And you have been that. And that you still are. And of course, he came from Southern Baptist heritage. And he really meant to create the best parts of that heritage and leave out sin and condemnation. He did that. You have done that too. The second part of what he wanted to create was a family. A family. We can't deny our families. We may go away, we may go out for a time or a lifetime. We're still in that family. And I would say to you, and I know some of you have come and gone, and I'm missing some faces here today, but I'll see them again, and so will you. Maybe they'll be in this building, and maybe it will be 1,000 years from now. This family endures. So if you're among the ones for whom perhaps the drama got to be too much, we've always had that, or other things have made a distance, my message to you today is it's always the time for reconciliation. Maybe you don't show up every Sunday, but you keep the bonds alive. And maybe it was Paul Solomon who caused someone to invent Facebook so we can do that easily. I depend on it. And maybe it's the cyber revolution that has brought to this world a hope that I've talked about here before, and we need it now more than ever. We don't have to climb on a plane and rent a hall to spread the word of God. We can do it on the net which is only in its infancy. And if I have a call, and I do have a call to make to you today, I want to see this family reconciled with its international brothers and sisters. They are out there. There are other centers operating. There are other centers that are dormant. I'd like to wake them up. I know you will welcome them. You always have. And I'll call you to travel to see them too. And I've not heard a lot about that, although Heidi knows how to make that happen. And Bruce, you went to Nepal with that group too. Well, I have one more note to sound in my very brief talk. I have said to 3 people that are sitting here in front of me, and I won't embarrass you, but I'm glad you're here. A few people have been prepared to do something else that Paul assigned to internet consciousness. To be healers, not just of the physical body, but to be healers to those in this world who have fallen out of community. And you may not know this about Paul in the first few years of this fellowship in Atlanta, but this fellowship was born among a community of hard drinkers, hard druggers, and hard livers. And he saved a number of them. And those folks caught in that wheel remained dear to his heart. I know that. And I have sat with a couple of you in the upper room and prayed that you might recognize that you have what it takes to do therapy on such persons in a group in this sanctuary, even though they've fallen out of community, even though they've been looking for God in all the wrong places. And when they come here to the Virginia Beach to drink and drug and find their partners, they're looking for God in the wrong places. But they are looking for God. And I have prayed that they'll come through that door. And yes, I've asked a few of you to gather your gifts as counselors and not just welcome them, but heal them. ILC was meant to be healing, and healing for that population too. It was dear to Paul's heart for good reasons. He knew where they had been, what they were coming from. I'll just leave that with you at this point. I hope to be back a lot more often to help you. I've been told to say that. I don't know how that's going to be possible. I'll leave that up to God. Everything I leave up to God works out better anyway. And as you know, when you get that call from me from the airport that says, "Can you pick me up and can I stay with you?" I'm not one of the great planners. So I'll leave that up to God too, but I do expect to be here more often and join with you and do my part. So that is my message. It's brief. I do mean it. And I see by your faces it's been received. So let's just close our eyes, only for 30 seconds. Ask God to make all this happen and hasten this day for every one of us. I know I've said this to some of you in readings, and it's been said to be many times, and I hear Paul's voice when I say it. Every one of you is a teacher. Every one of you is a minister. And every one of you is good enough to walk with God. Say amen to that. Amen. Thank you.